Black Myth Wukong's combat may initially seem very straightforward, but there's a ton of nuance that you'll need to fully grasp in order to handle its toughest challenges. To that end, here's a quick guide covering the essential combat tips that you'll need to know to survive Black Myth Wukong's wild world. The number one tip that applies to just about every action game out there is to get out of the habit of just thoughtlessly hammering on the attack button. You won't attack any faster by mashing attack, but what you will do is dull your reflexes because your brain is thinking attack, 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 instead of being on the lookout for enemy tells that let you know when to dodge. You'll also probably run out of stamina really quick, which is a point that we'll get to later. Rather than mashing, keep a steady rhythm to your attacks, and after every hit, analyze how the enemy reacted to it. If they just took it, press the button again. If they made any sort of movement indicating an attack, be ready to dodge or use a spell like Immobilize, Cloud Step, or Rock Solid. Now obviously the timing of when you should dodge is dependent on the attack and the enemy, but regardless you'll be much more able to find that timing if you're actively looking for it, as opposed to just focusing on pressing the attack button rapidly. Your spells are the great equalizer in this game. They allow you to get free hits on enemies and bosses that can otherwise be very elusive, and they allow you to avoid taking damage in a game where your foes will regularly launch into 10-hit rapid swinging combos that feel like they never end. So be sure to use them, but also note that mana restoration is not a simple matter in this game. There's no consumable that just gives you your mana back. So when you do use a spell, make sure that you're able to get the most out of it. Don't immobilize a foe if you don't have the focus to make your short damage dealing window count. Consider saving Cloud Step as an emergency way to disengage and heal against a particularly aggressive foe, and think about maybe not using a Pluck of Many if you're unable to have it do enough damage to make it worth the substantial mana cost. Be extra careful about the timing of your spells also, because if you don't time your cast properly, there's a chance that an enemy attack will land before your Immobilize fully lands, or Pluck of Many finishes casting, wasting both mana and recharge time. Hitting enemies with a strong attack will generally make them stumble backwards, interrupting their action and giving you an opportunity to restart your offense against them. You can chain these staggers together by following up one staggering move with another one and just unload a whole bunch of damage on one foe. Try the following sequence: full light attack combo, Immobilize, 3 focus point charged heavy attack, then spirit attack. Doing this sequence can all but guarantee that all of these big hits will land, dealing a huge chunk of damage all at once. The hard part, of course, is landing a full light attack combo, but if you get the combat skill that lets you use dodge offsets, it will be much easier to land. Your focus meter is a huge part of the combat in Wukong, and knowing how and when to use it will definitely be a difference maker in the tougher fights. There are 3 main ways to use focus. Either spend a point of focus to use a varied combo by pressing the heavy attack button in the middle of a light attack combo, or you could empty all of your already earned focus points for a hugely damaging fully charged heavy attack, or you could charge up a heavy attack if you don't already have the focus points banked. Varied combos have to be invested in, and are the hardest to make work, but they can still be very useful. For example, the power of the Smash Dance varied combo is that if an enemy hits you during the startup of it, you can completely negate it and deliver your own powerful attack that will typically stagger. If you invest more into it, you can even use a light attack after this powerful attack lands to start at the 3rd hit of your 5-hit combo, which usually means that you'll get another stagger before the enemy can recover. Though it can be difficult to precisely time it so that an enemy hits you during your invulnerability frames. So I'd only really recommend this use of focus if you're really confident that you could pull it off consistently, because otherwise it's a waste of a point of focus. The best use of focus I've found is to essentially cash it in with a big heavy attack once you've built up 3 bars with your light attack and perfect dodges. The fastest heavy attack is the one out of the thrust stance, which should be your go-to if your enemy isn't immobilized. The pillar stance heavy attack does great AoE damage and should be used in fights where you're dealing with lots of enemies at once, and the smash stance does the most damage, but it is quite slow and lacks range, so make extra sure you know that it will land before you use it. Charging up a focus attack is a great plan as well in certain situations, especially the smash stance charge attack, since you can charge it while moving around. Just know that you cannot cancel a charge attack and then bank the focus for later. Whatever you charge has to be used by that attack. It's very easy to lose track of your stamina in this game, because your character isn't visibly affected when your stamina is low, and you can still attack even without any stamina. However, you won't be able to dodge in the middle of your attack combo, you won't be able to use the powerful final hit of your combo, and you won't be able to use varied combos either. This can be the difference between life and death, so make sure that you're keeping an eye on your stamina gauge and disengage to let it refill if it gets too low. Doing a perfect dodge in Wukong feels really good, but in comparison with other action games like Bayonetta or Nier Automata, it's actually not nearly as rewarding. All you get for a perfect dodge is a bit of extra focus, which is great, don't get me wrong, but the risk of mistiming it and taking a huge chunk of damage actually far outweighs the benefit in most cases. You can invest a bit more in perfect dodges to make the risk reward a little bit better, but as a general piece of advice, if a boss is leaping towards you with a hugely telegraphed attack, don't wait until the absolute last second to avoid it to try to get the perfect dodge. Just get the heck out of there and save the perfect dodge attempts for less damaging, faster attacks with a predictable rhythm. Spirit attacks are easy to forget about because they're not tied to any sort of resource like a focus meter or your mana. Instead, they're just set on a cooldown. Still, they're a very important tool in combat, and their usage really depends on what kind of spirit you're using. I'm a big fan of the Wandering Wight, as it gives you an extra staggerable attack that deals big damage, which is useful in just about every situation. But there are plenty of other options that have far more specific uses, like buffing your attack, inflicting a status effect on an enemy, dealing AoE damage, and much more. Vessels are typically rewards for completing some sort of side quest or major plot event, and provide bonuses that can almost be viewed as secret weapons that only work for specific boss fights. The first one you get from the secret Elden Jinchi boss in Chapter 1 makes you immune to fire damage, which the final boss of Chapter 1 almost exclusively deals. The one you get in Chapter 2 allows you to get rid of sandstorms, which is what the final boss of Chapter 2 will throw at you during the second phase of the fight. These are extremely helpful tools that will help you with tough fights, so make sure you get them. We've got videos to show how you can find them at the end of this video. These vessels also have secondary effects like increasing damage absorption or gradually increasing focus, so don't just use them for a single boss fight and then never again, as they can still give you an edge in other fights too. You'll be able to craft, find, and purchase a variety of different types of medicines that grant temporary buffs. While I wouldn't recommend using these on your first couple of attempts against a new boss, once you feel like you've got their patterns down and are getting close to overcoming them, definitely consider downing a couple to give you that extra little push you need to finish out the fight. One of the great things about this game is that you can respec basically everything freely. If you find yourself struggling with a boss, consider going to a shrine and redoing your whole skill tree. Maybe add some points into your health and defense stats so you can survive more hits, or take points away from skills you're not using and instead buff up certain stances or spells that you are. Maybe even consider boosting your elemental resistance to specifically target what a boss is hitting you with so you don't freeze, burn, get poisoned, or shocked quite as easily. Not only that, but you can also return to the Fox NPC in Chapter 2 and respec your celestial medicines, which will further allow you to reallocate your stat points. And those are our essential tips for conquering the combat of Black Myth Wukong. Thanks for watching, and for more Wukong guides, make sure to check out our videos showing how to fight the secret bosses that grant you the aforementioned vessels, and our list of things the game doesn't tell you. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.